Hello, America, and thank you for tuning in to Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil. My name is Dr. Lily M. Coley, and I am here today with a wonderful guest so that she would come and talk with you all about being empowered as it relates to her legal story, and also for her to help share some of the things she's been through. Nonetheless, we're so grateful that we have the Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil so that we can talk about our legal stories. How many of you know we all got a story, and some of us have a legal story, and the legal story ain't always so great, but we realize that sometimes things happen in life for a reason, and we're trying to make the best out of it. So, and without further ado, I want Sister Laurie to come. Laurie Nicholson. She is from Erie, Pennsylvania. She worked in Erie County, and that's not Philadelphia, but it's outside of Philadelphia, where she's going to come and talk about some of her experiences and things that she's dealt with in her legal story. And she's going to try to empower you. So listen closely and also encourage her as she gives you information about things that may not have been so great. So Laurie, take it away.
Thank you, Lily, so much for having me on. Hello, everyone. My name is Laurie Nicholson. I am from Erie County, Pennsylvania. I went through a 16-year battle with the courts. In 2005, I asked for a divorce. I did not ask to divorce my children. Throughout those 16 years, it was highly contentious, in and out of court repeatedly, false allegations. It went on forever. It felt like. Back in, I would say about 2019 was the last time I was represented. I had 11 different attorneys, hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in evaluators, psychologists, counselors, anything I could do to benefit my children, I was willing to do. We even had a GAL. When you obtain these services, you believe in your heart that this will help your case. And unfortunately, in my case, it did not help. It made things much worse. Where would you like me to go, Lily?
I thought maybe you could tell them a little bit about, thank God that you were able to let the country know that when you went through a divorce, unfortunately, you were not intending to divorce your children. Very important statement. So I think it's very important for the audience to understand some of the things you might have went through in the legal finagle. Where do you think the problem may have gotten lost in terms of the legality of the situation? Where do you think
I honestly believe that had the first infraction on a custody order the first order that we had that been upheld, had it been enforced, we would not have gone through all of this. Literally, I got done last July. I can tell you that there was not one court order that was upheld, not one court order that was enforced, numerous orders written over other orders. When you went in for contempt, there was purposeful delays, upwards of 6 months. I can tell you that when my co-parent decided to leave the state of Pennsylvania and relocate, I filed in July. I had the first hearing was supposed to be, contempt hearing was supposed to be held September 1st. Another judge was supposed to take on this case. And in fact, it was scheduled for September 1st. The court order was written August 3rd. And I was elated because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in, without a long delay. Well, then this president judge of Erie County remanded the case back to himself, and it was delayed another 30 days.
Wow.
Meanwhile, I have a child that is getting acclimated in a different school district other than her hometown. Once I went through the contempt procedure, then I filed for a modification of custody. I filed for that in July. My first hearing was not held. The trial, first part of the trial was not held till October of 2020. So we're talking all that time went by. And then the second part of the trial did not occur. I was given 2 dates. I could choose between July 7th or July 8th, my birthday. So we had that hearing, but in between that time where I filed and the actual hearing, I did discover, being pro se, that there had been a 5-year stay placed on our docket. I can tell you I was never made aware of it by my last attorney on file, on record. I was never able to defend that stay. I never knew why there was a stay. So of course, I filed 3 motions to clarify that went unaddressed and unanswered by the president judge. I then filed a motion to vacate that stay. That also went unaddressed and unanswered. During those 5 years, number one, a stay is only used in criminal cases. I have yet to find another custody case where a stay has been placed. I cannot find one anywhere throughout the United States. So when there's a stay in place, there's not supposed to be any other litigation. Well, guess what? In those 5 years of the stay being placed, I can tell you I've probably been to court at least 10 times. There was all kinds of litigation that transpired.
It didn't sound like it was a real stay at all.
I'm sorry?
It didn't sound like it was a real stay at all.
Well, I'm kind of figuring that out now, because during the last proceedings that we had, I did mention again to the judge, what about this stay? I mean, they technically should not have even done the custody trial because of the stay. The stay should have been lifted first.
So where are you at right now? What do you think in regard to the judges as you look at where things have been coming along? First, I wanted to talk to you about the transcript. I know I saw something about the transcript situation and your minor child. You can just briefly talk about that little challenge. And then we want to see whether or not you think that talking to the judges or talking to the judge, where we can go from now in terms of trying to make this a better situation and not a worse situation.
Well, what I can tell you is the first portion of the trial transpired in October. I think it was October 26th of 2020. And then the second portion took place on July 7th of 2021. In between that time, I did request this transcript. And in the transcript, I was literally shocked. I couldn't believe what I was reading. So my daughter had a conversation with the president judge, Judge Walsh. And apparently the judge suggested to my daughter that I was mentally ill. Not only did he suggest that I was mentally ill to my minor child, but he also suggested that perhaps I was on medication. I have never been diagnosed with anything. I have no criminal record. I have no criminal past. I'm not a drug addict. I'm not an alcoholic, but yet I have a judge in these pages suggesting to my minor child that I'm mentally ill. These courts are so corrupt. The gaslighting, the gang stalking, all these years of litigation was never done honestly. It was through a pocket pal system. There's so many bad actors involved. I mean, I had no idea when I started connecting the dots that the GAL was involved, the law firm was involved, all these, and then the psychologists or the counselors were always pocket pal friends of one of the attorneys. I had no idea all this was going on. I'm still in shock, but we need a complete overhaul. We need transparency. We need accountability. This judge has destroyed, completely decimated my family. And I don't deserve that. No parent in America deserves to be separated from their child for no reason. This judge kept me away with an illegal stay for 5 years from my children. And I'll never make up that time, ever. And I'm upset.
Yeah, I
want all the parents out there to know, You are not alone. We know that there's a problem within the court system. We are aware. We want cameras in the courts. We almost want trials by jury. We don't want our children pulled behind closed doors and lifelong decisions being made for our children. It's wrong. These judges don't know us. These counselors don't know us. They don't live with us. They have no idea. And if you have a parent that has no criminal past, no criminal record, how can you validate taking those children away from a good mother or a good father for that matter? How can you do that? There's criminals that have more rights than we do. Their relationships with their children are fostered and they're encouraged and they're actually paid for. We've been paying through the ass. I've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars just because I got a divorce. That's wrong.
Right, it is. So it's something about this whole system that we know stinks. And as I shared some of the things that I've been through dealing with my godson and some other matters related to the family court, it seems like it was not to be taken seriously. But at the end of the day, it's still a court. Although the standards of it is extremely low, and the U.S. Department of Justice or the District Attorney's Office doesn't even kind of get involved to some degree because it's such a family thing. So the question would be, what can we do to try to fix the system? Is it a way, I was wondering, was a way we could talk to the judges? I mean, I don't know if the judges are just feeling like they need to be in a club, so to speak, or they're just going along with this because of the greed. But I'm thinking to myself, if a order that is given under the premise of fraud, if for what I know, a order that has been produced by fraud has no legal value. So
Correct.
anything that comes, right, anything that comes after it is not,
and that's why that's why I never got a finalized court order. I never received a finalized court order. And that is because this was all done under fraudulent pretenses and that I could never, ever appeal it.
So for everybody out there, if you obtain a order by fraud, any order after that is considered void, is legal nullity. It has no legal rights, no nothing. If the person appeals it, or if you appeal portions of it, the appellate division is supposed to set it aside when the lower court loses their preliminary power. They're supposed to set that order aside because they cannot make a decision on an order that has been void. If you find that your system on each level has done just that, then you know that that's just not going to, that order has no value. That's not going, that whole system is messed up. So in order for us as people in the public paying taxes, living our lives and doing what we're doing, we need to probably go after our local officials. The local officials, the state ones, are there in place to help bring about a change. And I know you were part of this parental alienation.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that before we get back onto the judge. I want people to know there are some things that were in the mix that might be on pause, but they're still out there.
I believe that the parental alienation was created from the distance that I had with my children. I believe that had there not been a 5-year stay, I wouldn't be alienated today. If my co-parent didn't know about that stay, none of this would have happened. I think everybody was together on this. I totally believe that. And I do know that this is not only my case. There's other victims here in our local area that have had the same bad actors, the same judge, the same GAO, the same law firm, and the exact same thing has happened to them. So for people out there that do not know what parental alienation is, there's an oodle upon oodles of information out there for you. But basically, in a nutshell, it's where the co-parent keeps you away from your child at all costs. You are removed from any records, any doctor records, any school records. You can stop the school by using FERPA. You can go to your medical provider and let them know you're still a parent. Even though my ex took my child to another state, I have every right to see her records, how many days she's missed in school, what her grades are. In fact, I can even talk to her teachers because it's funny, Florida definitely treats parents a lot different than Pennsylvania does. So yeah, I thought that really,
And you're still the parent. I mean,
yeah,
no matter what
that's
they
what,
say and try to do,
Mhm.
nothing's going to take the fact away that you carried the child, and that's your
Right,
child. So
right.
I'm thinking to myself now, as all these different cases are going on, like in America, and how we're dealing with this, even in this region, is it something we can do with the judges, or the state legislators, so that we could bring about? So the answer is, we probably can't answer it now, but the answer obviously is yes. We have to be able to do something if we're going to have our democracy flourish. Otherwise, the corroding of the family is really the fragment of our country. And you have a child that, like in your case, went to a judge, or was summoned by a judge, so to speak, a minor. And then the judge says things to this child behind closed doors about her mother, and it's on record. I mean, these things can damage children.
Had I not gotten the transcript, I would have never known.
And she
People,
was too young to
go get your
understand.
transcripts. There's other people around here that have been denied their transcripts.
I have been
You
denied
keep
transcripts.
fighting.
The transcripts have been altered. There's been a lot of
Yes.
crazy things that have happened, and this is mostly in the family court. And it's really, to me, it's just laughable. So you
Yeah.
can't enforce something that doesn't have no legal value, and truly something that's not real. So,
Correct.
I mean, I'm not that stupid. I mean, this is
Oh, Lily, I've
ridiculous.
tried to go to state representatives regarding my case. I have written to the governor. I'll get a generic letter. I can produce one like immediately. Generic letters. I have gone everywhere that I can. I think we need to band together. We cannot do this singularly. We just can't. We have to come up with a better solution. We have to get mad. I mean, what they have done to all of these families, and there's millions of us.
Absolutely.
Millions of families are being destroyed because of what? Corruption of the courts. These judges are becoming too powerful. And the more that they do, the more they get away with, the more they're going to do it.
So a lot of this is driven by greed and power.
Correct.
And collusion with
Correct.
law firms, people who take an oath of office and destroy the constitutional rights of individuals, try to use that fraud against them, and then they say perpetrate different types of things. I mean, it's disgusting. And for me, coming up from a political family and a military child, people that fought for the country, people who fought for rights in a good way, and to see this, I know I have to do something as a person. So we need to keep talking about this, Laurie. We're going to keep talking. We're going to try to produce some things where we can approach some mechanisms. I don't know what they might be, but there's some in place now that we might be able to tap into to help us maneuver through some of these things. There in some counties, you have to vote the judge in. And then there's ways you can unseat judges and things that you can do to expose the corruption. Corruption has to be exposed. Let's make that plain.
Yeah, it's definitely tarnishing the trust of all Americans.
Exactly. And people are not taking anything seriously no more.
It's global.
Yeah, I know. Somebody sent me something from England, and they're going through the same thing in United Kingdom, and they wanted to try to see if we could start putting together things so that we, as a worldwide problem, can try to deal with it. But it's disheartening when you see a judge, somebody who took an oath of office, do something like this and have no problem with it. And in our case, we had a Black judge. How about that? The Black judge was the one who started the corruption, and he led it on with all these other things that came. So it had nothing to do with race, color, or anything like that. It had something to do with principle. It has something to do with being, like you say, trustworthy and humility. What we saw was a disgrace. So I hear your pain. I understand it, which is one of the reasons why
I'm
we
very
gotta keep
passionate about this. It gets me fired up. I'm upset. I mean, the damage that has not only been done to my family, but even the emotional trauma that I went through, the mental strain and stress.
Yes.
It takes a toll on you. I think in the last 16 years, I feel like I've aged 40. I used to get so traumatized. I used to get traumatized going to the mailbox because you could lay money every single weekend or every single holiday. You were going to get court papers in the mail. They made sure of it. I mean, they timed it to make sure you got something to ruin your birthday, ruin Christmas, ruin Easter, ruin this, ruin that. I mean, even going to the courthouse. I mean, physically get sick
Right.
going to the courthouse.
That's
And you
what happened
can't
to my
tell them
godson.
you have
Yep.
complex PTSD from this because, oh no, there's a label. Now you're really crazy.
Yeah. My
Mhm.
godson got sick too from just the thought of being in a, he actually threw up a couple of times
Yep.
because the whole environment just made him sick to his stomach.
Mhm.
And then it didn't do any good when he did the lying. So we understand. And what we want to try to do is think we can come up with some solutions and work with our representatives across the nation. We do have a few states that are willing, and sometimes it's going to take a few to start the whole flame of fire. So is there
Tell people,
anything?
don't be afraid to share your story. The more attention we draw to this, that's only going to improve things. We need to shed the light on family court corruption.
Was there anything else you want to leave for the audience before we go to the next level?
Just know that you're not alone. Reach out. There's always advocates out there, but make sure that they're not fake advocates, because there's lots of them out there that are charging money. We don't charge anything. We're just here to be a listening ear, a shoulder to
Right.
cry on, anything. So just use your common sense. Know who the true advocates are. Thank you, Lily, so very much.
Thank you. And I think the FCLU and some of the other organizations might be a good place for everybody to start. We'll leave all that information in the chats and all the info description, so you can reach out to some of the organizations. And it says, as Laurie said, you're not alone. We have to work together as a country, as a nation, and as a community, so that we're leaving our children and our children's children something, a legacy. I mean, to think that I could go to sleep every night and just think that this is over with, or I'm just going to turn my blind eye. I can't consciously do it because my mother won't let me. My mother's deceased, and I feel like she's shaking me all the time saying, you got to do something, you got to do something. But I remember John Lewis, the state representative from Georgia, and he said, if you see something wrong, say something.
Say something.
And we are saying something because we see something wrong and it needs to stop, especially people who've been through this for some time. 16 years, Laurie's been through this. So get that picture.
Just to get a divorce. Because I wanted a divorce.
Right.
I paid through my children.
Wow. Unbelievable. So we know that sometimes, unfortunately, divorce happens, but we have to be adults about what we do. But I know some people did talk about how the money thing with divorces and between the judges involved, right there in the middle of it, is the worst it can ever be. And the kids is always the victims. So we got to work on this. This is something we need to work on. I think the family is very important to God. The family is the first institution he created. And I believe that we try to do what we can do to keep it together, or do what we need to do when there is a severing, because there were people in the Bible who divorced each other for whatever reason. You don't need to go and be retaliate and vindictive. We need to be able to work together as adults and move on to the next place. So thank you, Laurie Nicholson from Erie, PA. We're going to have the information regarding her, not just about her case numbers and all that, but about some things you need to know just in case you might be a victim to some of the circumstances in Erie County. And we want to try to see if we can work with the local representatives in that area and the judges to see if we can bring about a resolution, because we're going to do this. We're going to do it together, and we're going to do it one place and one leg at a time. So thank you all so much for tuning in to the Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil. This is our legal story segment. If you have a regular story that you want to talk about, come and tell us about that as well. We're trying to get it so that we can be therapeutic in talking about it, have resolutions, and then work towards the end goal. We don't just want to talk, we want to have resolutions. So I'm very, very, very goal oriented. So thank you all so much for participating in the Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil. We thank God for Sister Laurie Nicholson from Erie County, Erie, PA. And we just look to see what we're going to do on our next journey. Thank you so much, everybody. God bless, and we'll talk to you soon.